Most people think they can tell how rich someone is just by looking at them. You know, the clothes, the shoes, the way they travel. Simple sneakers, an old backpack, dark, plain clothes, flying economy. And almost automatically our brain goes, oh, that's probably a student, maybe a freelancer, someone who's still struggling. But here's the thing. That assumption is wrong way more often than we think. Because a lot of people who look like that actually own multiple companies. They have 7-figure bank accounts and massive assets they never talk about. Not because they can't afford more, but because they don't want to signal wealth. So in this video, I want to talk about why rich people often look poor, what's really going on behind that choice, and how you can use this way of thinking in your own life. Now let's step back for a second. How do rich people actually get rich in the first place? When most people think about wealth, they picture supercars, yachts, luxury brands, gold watches, flashy lifestyles on social media, or in rap music videos. And to be fair, yeah, some rich people do live like that. If you have money, showing it isn't automatically wrong. In certain cultures, wearing gold or diamonds is even a way of expressing success or generosity. But when you zoom in on the richest people on the planet, something feels off. They don't live the way we expect them to. Warren Buffett is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, yet he still lives in the same house he bought in the 1950s. He didn't even switch from a Nokia phone to an iPhone until 2010. Marc Jacobs wore basically the same plain t-shirt for years. Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of IKEA, flew economy class, drove an old Volvo, and dressed like a retired guy from Northern Europe. These people aren't poor. They just don't want to look rich. And that's not an accident. For wealthy people, living simply is a form of protection. It helps them avoid lawsuits, scams, unwanted attention, tax pressure, media noise, public expectations. And in exchange, they buy something incredibly expensive, peace of mind. Everywhere in the world, you'll find people who show their wealth and people who hide it. The difference isn't culture. It's how they use money. Some people see wealth as a personal achievement, so they signal status quietly. A nice house, but behind closed gates. A luxury car, but in a neutral color. Expensive clothes, but no loud logos. Others see money purely as a tool. A way to buy time, freedom, and choice. So they live very basic lives, even though their net worth is massive. And then there's a third group. People who need to be seen. Usually, they're newly rich. Money came fast. The desire for validation is still strong. And being visible feels important. None of this is inherently right or wrong. It really depends on what stage the money is in and what the person actually needs at that moment. So why do rich people often pretend to be poor? Not because they're humble, not because they're morally superior, but because showing wealth doesn't increase assets. It increases friction. It raises social costs. It attracts risk. It weakens your leverage in business. And it turns you into a target. Real wealth isn't something you wear. It's businesses, equity, real estate, long-term investments. This mindset is often called stealth wealth, being rich quietly. From the outside, these people look completely ordinary. But if you pay attention, their sweater might be Loro Piana. Their jacket could be Brunello Cucinelli. And that plain, logo-free t-shirt might cost more than a few months of an average salary. The difference isn't the price. It's the intention. Most people buy expensive things to prove where they stand. Stealth wealth people buy quality because it feels better, lasts longer, and doesn't stress their finances. Here's something interesting. Financial studies consistently show that the biggest spenders on luxury goods aren't the ultra-rich. They're the middle class and the almost rich. People climbing the social ladder. Not rich enough to stop proving themselves, but not poor enough to be ignored. They buy luxury cars to impress partners. Expensive clothes to avoid feeling inferior. From the outside, they look successful. On the inside, their finances are stretched thin. This is fragile wealth. Not poor because there's no money, but poor because the money doesn't belong to them. It belongs to banks, loans, and image maintenance. Truly rich people use money to buy freedom. People who flex use money to buy attention. One spends and feels lighter. The other spends and feels heavier. And that's why rich people often look poor, while poor people sometimes look rich. Looking poor is powerful because it works like camouflage. When you don't signal wealth, people are less likely to target you. Think about a peacock. Once it spreads its feathers, predators notice. If you shine too much, people stop listening to what you say and start thinking, this person has money. Let's charge them more. But when you wear a plain t-shirt and normal shoes, you look approachable. People treat you differently. And on social media, this effect is even stronger. Showing off wealth attracts crowds, not real friends. It increases the risk of being used. It brings real security and legal risks. From high-profile robberies to increased tax scrutiny, wealth plus visibility often means losing privacy. That's why many wealthy people today choose invisibility. Not disappearing, just not drawing attention. They keep control over their money and their lives. This leads to familiar patterns. Dressing simply, driving durable cars instead of upgrading every year, living in modest homes, choosing quiet luxury with no logos, staying low-key to maintain negotiation power. What these people usually share is humility, warmth, and generosity. Because if you constantly need to prove you're rich, your wealth isn't stable yet. And the people who give freely are often the ones who truly have enough. Now, when people think about wealth, celebrities often come to mind. Which brings up an interesting question. Can artists or public figures look poor? In entertainment, the opposite usually happens. They look rich. Luxury items, fancy cars, five-star hotels. Most of that can be bought, even on credit. But there's one level that can't be faked. Privilege. Access to limited items. Private events. Special treatment. Fake wealth is decoration. Real wealth is access. Truly wealthy artists can still live simply. Not because they lack money, but because they remove money signals from their public image. They dress simply, but never cheaply. They don't flex wealth, but they never lose privilege. For them, money is a byproduct. Image is the asset. And this brings us to a dangerous trap called the Diderot effect. You buy one premium item and suddenly feel like you've leveled up. But after a while, everything else feels out of place. So you upgrade again, and the cycle begins. Once a higher standard becomes normal, spending increases, expectations rise, and satisfaction shrinks. Truly wealthy people are very careful with this trap because they know upgrading one thing often forces you to upgrade everything around it. Poor people buy luxury to prove who they are. Rich people buy quality because they want to. And most importantly, they know when to stop. This way of thinking isn't just for rich people. If you're not wealthy yet, it might matter even more. When you don't show off, people don't assume you have money. And being underestimated can actually be an advantage. There's an old saying, true masters never reveal themselves. Looking poor protects your mental space, your finances, and your freedom. Instead of flexing success online, you let money work for you. You invest quietly. You treat the right people well. And you grow without noise. Smart people don't need others to know how fast they're moving. Because their goal isn't to be seen. It's to go far. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you got at least one useful idea out of this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.